We are still in the middle of this down cycle in the farm economy with not a lot of reasons for optimism, at least in the short term. This, of course, impacts farmers, but it also impacts ag retailers, including farmer-owned cooperatives.
With limited capital and reduced profitability for all ag sector, as you get more efficient, you get technology that allows you to do things differently.
MFA Incorporated has made some big moves to improve their efficiency and the value they bring to farmer and rancher member customers, including a new digital platform called MFA Connect.
It's really allowed us to focus on what we're going to be the best at. We're going to be best at serving our producers, making sure they have products when they need it and when they want it, and make sure we're competitively priced.
MFA Executive Vice President of Operations Jason Weirich shares his thoughts on ag retail, the changing farm economy, and the importance of technology and innovation.
I look at innovation and technology. There's a few companies out there that remain invested in research and development. And supporting those companies should be one of the top priorities for the industry as a whole because they're the ones bringing the new solutions.
Jason Weirich of Missouri-based cooperative MFA Incorporated on today's Future of Agriculture podcast. Hello, fellow ag nerd. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Future of Agriculture. My name is Tim Hammerich, and every week you and I get to hear from the founders, farmers, innovators, and investors, the people shaping the future of the ag industry. About 4 years ago now, I did a series on this show called Tech-Enabled Advisor. The idea being I want to better understand ag tech, specifically through the lens of the buyer of that technology rather than just entrepreneurs and investors. Those are great people too. We get them on the show often, but probably a little too often as opposed to the people actually out there using the technology. And the series turned out great. I think I did maybe 6 or 7 episodes featuring agronomists and advisors and retailers that were using ag technology to better serve their farmer customers. And by talking to the buyers of technology rather than the sellers, we got an unfiltered introduction, not only to that technology, but more importantly, got to see how it's being used and the value that it's providing that individual user. So I really loved putting those episodes together, and here we are somehow 4 years later. I've never tried to do it again, and that is until now. So I'm bringing back this Tech-Enabled Advisor series on an ongoing basis to keep telling these stories of how ag tech is used on the front lines, so to speak. So to do this, as part of the Tech-Enabled Advisor series, I'm going to do it similarly to how I did it last time, which is I will partner with a company, and together we're going to invite one of their customers onto the show for an interview. The catch, though, is that the company's not allowed to script those individuals or dictate what they can say or what they can't say or edit it after it's recorded. It just has to be real and unfiltered. So today's episode is the beginning of this reinstatement of the Tech-Enabled Advisor series featuring Jason Weirich of MFA, and it was produced in partnership with AgVend. A lot of you probably know AgVend. Alexander, the CEO, has been on the show before, and they were part of our last Tech-Enabled Advisor series as well. But they are a leading provider of digital enablement solutions that transform the way agribusinesses operate their organizations and engage with their customers. AgVend's white-labeled system of action streamlines workflows from field to office, enabling frontline teams to offer more efficient and differentiated customer interactions. Since launching their first platform in 2020, AgVend's technology is used by more than 35% of the North American ag retail market. And today, you're going to get to hear from one of those retailers, MFA Incorporated, as they launched a digital platform of their own called MFA Connect with AgVend. Jason Weirich is the Executive Vice President of Operations at MFA, which has around 45,000 member owners. They are one of the largest ag retailers in the country and consistently in the top 10 of the CropLife 100. Jason oversees the retail operations located throughout Missouri as well as surrounding states, including southern Iowa, eastern Kansas, northeast Arkansas, and northwest Oklahoma. He also oversees the wholesale operations, which span the entire Midwest, from the Rocky Mountains all the way to Ohio. Prior to joining MFA 15 years ago, Jason was the state extension weed specialist at the University of Missouri. He joined the cooperative as the director of agronomy and says he walked a lot of fields for 9 years and eventually moved into his current role. Our conversation today touches on the relevance of the cooperative model, how he's making difficult decisions in this tough farm economy, why they implemented MFA Connect and the results they're seeing from that digital platform and customer portal, the role of the ag retailer in a changing farmer demographic, and how he goes about implementing change in a big industry and a large organization. I'll drop into the conversation here where Jason is discussing the relevance of the cooperative model and the role of ag retail.
When I think about the ag retail sector, MFAs of the world, it's really around meeting that producer at the farm gate and helping them be successful in the operations. Now, are we as fast as some of the other independents and things that are out there? Probably not, but I think that a cooperative mindset and being there to provide goods and services for our member owners is really the foundation of who we are as a cooperative and what we're trying to accomplish. But when I think specifically of MFA, we are not in the energy business. That's our sister company, MFA Oil. So I think of the other cooperatives that serve ag retail. Usually it's a total farm solution, including energy. So it'd be fuel, propane, diesel, gas, whatever it may be. However, I would say that one of the things that we focus on a little bit is our feed and cattle operations. In our footprint specifically, our beef cattle producer is a significant portion of our business, and we continue to try to help our ranchers and cattle guys be successful through innovation and technology and providing them tools, providing them feed and innovation in our feed products as well. Missouri is being very diversified, and then how does a cooperative serve the total farm needs of our farmers and ranchers in our footprint?
Yeah, and that's got to be, in practice, it's got to be challenging at times. I mean, I'm going to come up with a hypothetical here that, maybe you have an area that is, shrinking in terms of population. MFA serves that population, but how do you make the decision of whether, keeping a location open to serve that local customer base still makes sense for the cooperative as a whole?
Yeah, I think that as you look at the compression in margins at the farm gate, as our producers continue to see shrinking opportunities and profitability at the farm gate, we too see that same thing happen in any ag retail sector. It really is not just to the cooperative model, but all ag retail sector. Those margins get compressed. When our producers do good, the cooperative seems to do pretty good as well. It's kind of a love-love relationship and a hate-hate relationship. So when I think about how do we become more efficient with our assets, and one thing we have to realize first is we're not going to be everything to everybody. And I think if you think back to what the cooperative was found off of, was to provide a service and or goods through a collective group of folks to get a better price. And so one of the things that we look at is, can the producer still get their needs met either by MFA or a competitor or another entity in those specific areas? And that's one of the things we look at is, with limited capital and reduced profitability for all ag sector, as you get more efficient, you get technology that allows you to do things differently. And one of the things that I like to talk about with producers, specifically the row crop producer, I've sit across the table in advisory board meetings and talk about location closures. And those are tough. Those are tough conversations. Coming from a family farm, I look across the table and I think of those guys being my grandfather, and how would my grandfather take that conversation? A lot of times it doesn't do very good. But one of the things I always say is, we are operating facilities that were built in the 50s, 60s, 70s with little investment made into infrastructure. So we have stores oftentimes are 10, 15, 20 miles apart. And when you fully staff those facilities, you've got R&M, you've got utilities, you've got all the things that exist at those facilities, and the compressed margin structure that is there, there's just not enough there to continue to operate that way. So we have to change our operations. And so when I talk to a producer, I was like, hey, if you want to go back to running a 4440 John Deere tractor with a 6-row planter, we can continue to operate the way we are today. We've got several fertilizer plants that are that were built in the 60s and 70s that still take in fertilizer at the same speed and still take fertilizer out at the same speed as they did then. So it's odd to have those conversations with those producers. It's like, hey, as you've made advancements in your operations, your cooperative needs to do the same. And having those facilities every 10, 15 miles apart is not sustainable for the cooperative. And those are conversations we've been having locally with our advisory boards, with our board of directors. We are a centralized co-op, so we do have 14 board members that represent our 14 different board districts that are out there. And those guys are aware of the path that we're going, and we've made some significant investments, and we have a roadmap going forward to continue to do that. So changing our operations and being better stewards with the capital that our producers allow us to have is adopting the technology into the ag retail sector. So you've got your producers that are rapidly adopting high-speed planters, technology, GPS, auto steer, sprayers. The cooperative needs to keep up as well.
And, in addition to aligning your operations, your assets with that new way of doing business, what other ways are you having to keep up as a cooperative with sort of that changing farm dynamic?
Yeah, I think doing business the way the producers want to do business. And that segments are completely different depending on, I would not even say age is not necessarily a deciding factor in how a producer wants to do business. We have several producers that are older that have adopted technology or have adopted the use of data utilization. So utilizing the data to make informed decisions. So how do we utilize the data that we have, whether it be harvest data, soil test data, weed control data, or even just your financial data, grain data, how many bushels you're taking off, all the opportunities for margins for our producers, and utilizing that data through an AI model or providing information to the producer that they haven't seen, or maybe some insights that they haven't had the ability to use that information to make informed decisions. So we're trying to meet the producer how they want to do business. If you want to have somebody that you can contact and be there 24/7, we absolutely do that. But if you want to buy your crop protection needs or plant foods and not hear from anybody, that's fine too. We're trying to figure out how do we meet the needs of a very diverse sector or very diverse population of producers out there. And one of the things that we've done is really trying to adopt into technology would be MFA Connect, which would be our platform, grower platform that allows us to connect with our producers 24/7, if you will, if they want to. And I think that's a different set of producers out there that really have changed. Our church groups were involved in coaching baseball. We're involved in our school groups. We're involved in our family life at home. A lot of our producers have jobs off the farm too as well, and they come home and farm. So meeting our producers and letting them do business when they want to do business and not necessarily just during the business hours when we're open. So multiple ways we're trying to meet them and be able to do that. And I think that's something that is a concern for a lot of retailers is how do you get the producer the information and the speed and how they want it?
Mm-hmm. And for those, I think it's one point that's interesting of like, okay, different producers want to interact in different ways. For those that want sort of the high touch, really kind of in-depth conversation, how do you make sure that your staff are ready to kind of handle that level of depth and expertise?
Well, that is really the foundation of who MFA is, to have highly trained, qualified personnel in the field or locations that are able to answer those questions. And I think that's the foundation of who we are. That's the foundation of a cooperative, is really providing a solution to help the producers' profitability and or issues that they're facing at the farm gate. And that's what we're structured to do. And I think that is one of the things that we are challenged with is how do we change that model and still be an effective ag retailer for every producer that's out there. And that's something we do struggle with at the location level is how can I talk to this person and meet this guy the way he wants to be met at this farm gate, but go down to the neighbor and he wants to be communicated completely different. And that's tough because we have a hard time saying that this is the value of myself. And then you talk to the managers or the frontline agronomists and say, hey, what you're providing, every time that you give a rec or you identify a weed or that that you're providing a walk in those fields, those things are touch points, but also services that you provide to our member owners, and hopefully that you're demonstrating value to the producer, that the cooperative is here to help you, or that MFA is there to help you guys be more successful at your operations.
And tell us more about MFA Connect. I mean, you kind of introduced it as a way for a customer to connect however they want to. How long has that been around, and what has been sort of the uptake of that amongst farmers?
Yeah, MFA Connect is our internal platform for connectivity to our producer. I would say that the adoption has been pretty good. Again, it's meeting the producer where they want to be met. So they're able to pay invoices, they're able to see the invoices, able to see all of the communication, be able to see quotes, anything that's generated from our sales folks, our managers to them, able to pay a bill with a couple clicks. And it's a pretty awesome service that we have to be able to do that. As a cooperative, advancements in technology is sometimes we're seen as slow to adopt or slow to bring new tools to help our producers. We just take it for granted as, hey, you can just walk in the store and you can ask for your invoices or bills to be printed off. But there's a rapid shift in transitions. I'm sure that's been talked about for many years, but a shift in farm ownership as the next generation comes to the farm, as the next person that wants to receive the data, they want to see it. And MFA Connect has allowed us to make those connections. So we have set some goals and structures for the number of our producers, and we continue to see rapid adoption of that, probably faster than we originally thought, to be honest with you.
I mean, I would imagine that would also have some value in internal operations being more efficient for your farmer customers because all that stuff is happening through MFA Connect.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about the turnover, nobody likes turnover, especially at the sales folks, manager level, or agronomist level. That customer-facing turnover causes a lot of issues. Regardless, I don't think this is going to be an online, purchasing platform to where we can just go on and start buying CP and plant foods. I don't think that's what our producers currently want. Will we get there someday? Maybe. We may potentially see that. But it's still so much a relationship business and developing those relationships. But internally, we're able to see when we do have that turnover, that institutional knowledge. So touch points, conversations, quotes that have been generated that are out there, but also allows us to get prepared for the upcoming season so we can have product in place. So as we generate those quotes and those quotes are accepted by the producer, we're now able to make sure that we have those CP products and or plant food products, in proximity or in the customer store for him to be able to pick that up. So that is one of the benefits we see as we go into forecasting. Think about some of the geopolitical situation we're in now. Do we have the products in place? Can we have them there? And we go ahead and get that done and be able to do that. So clear line of communication and goals and structures allows us to make sure we have the products in place for our producers.
Are there any examples you can share of kind of unexpected outcomes from rolling out MFA Connect in terms of just like, I knew it would help in this area, but I was really surprised at how much it helped in this other area?
Well, absolutely. There was one specifically, and it come around a promotion on what you would say would be MFA rewards. It was around a promotional project around mineral and mineral tubs, and the enrollment of buying X amount of tons of mineral, you get a free mineral tub, and we saw significant growth in some areas from just the marketing and allowing us to say, hey, if you buy X many bags of Ricochet mineral, you'll be qualified for a mineral tub. The second part is we're piloting a rewards program right now and just could not believe. I'm a member of a lot of different rewards. I am Bass Pro, Casey's, all the different ones that are out there, try to maximize my earnings. So when they have those club member days at Bass Pros, I'm probably going to buy a gun. But MFA, we're piloting that currently, and the enrollment is significantly higher than I thought it was going to be. So we're already over 20% of our total enroll of MFA Connect is actually enrolled in MFA Rewards. And you have to click to be enrolled into the rewards program. So I'm surprised. I did not realize that we would have that much adoption early on. But simple, easy, and I'm surprised that that connection was there, to be honest with you.
So I would imagine then this is informing some changes in the way you market.
Yes, absolutely. The marketing side of this is not to over communicate, but to strategically communicate and how we're marketing the inbox to our producers. If the guy doesn't have any cattle, why would I want to promote cattle charge or ricochet to him if he doesn't have cattle? That might be something, versus broadcasting, hey, we're going to be spraying, say, a corn chemical, say Trivapro on corn. If a guy's a cattle producer and he doesn't have any corn, why do I want to market to him, a corn fungicide? So reducing that inbox clutter. Are we going to have road bumps? Absolutely. But being strategic in our marketing to help us be more efficient, but then also make sure that the marketing that we're doing is more impactful for our business and our cooperative.
Right. I tend to think, a cooperative as well known as MFA and as focused in your geography as MFA, that you pretty much just have access to 100% of the customers in your dry area, which I'm sure you would love, but is probably not the truth. To what extent are you able to access either through email or text message or phone calls, the farmers in the areas in which you serve?
We've probably touched about every grower within our footprint at some point or another. As you can imagine, we've gained some, we lose some. That customer churn, as you have turnover or we have issues or, that there's changes in the organization, you see that happen. So within our opportunity, within our Connect and to build that, you have to enroll, you have to accept that, you have to opt in to receiving that type of communication. And if you don't, then we can't communicate that way. So obviously, you don't want to over communicate, but what you do communicate, you want to make sure that it's important, effective, and timely, but not overdoing it. If you start blasting stuff, I oftentimes on stuff I've signed up for, I'll click no pretty quick. When I get 2 or 3 a day, I'm like, no, stop sending me
just
stuff.
did that with something that I'm actually interested in the product, but I can't handle the email anymore.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. And so are you finding that, if you can get the frequency of communication dialed in, is email still kind of a leading marketing tactic for the co-op?
Yeah, email is definitely there, but we had a board meeting here recently, and one of our board members come up and said him and his wife were sitting there watching, I don't know if it's Netflix or anyway, it was an online streaming platform. And he said, lo and behold, there was an MFA commercial. And I'm like, yes, absolutely. So this gentleman's in his 60s and was sitting there coming to me and was bragging on, never thought I'd see MFA on his TV with a commercial. And whether it's TikTok or YouTube or Facebook or any social media, it's those tidbits of information of just seeing the MFA shield or that logo, that brand recognition that MFA has, and seeing it in different places. And so email, as far as timely communication, I think is still important, but I think being more present in those different platforms has been huge as well. And we have a pretty good team that works on that. I'm not that expert, but I do enjoy it when I see it.
Yeah. And what about the agronomists you're hiring themselves? I imagine they probably have to cover as much ground as they ever have in terms of geography, just with farm consolidation and that sort of thing. How have your needs for what it takes to be an agronomist for MFA, how has that changed?
That continues to be a challenge for all ag retail, is competing for the talent. That talent base that we are getting out of our universities continues to shrink. That talent pool continues to shrink. And I think one of the things that we're seeing too is the amount of kids that are coming off the farm that go to college and then are looking for a job in the industry is getting fewer and far between. So finding that person that has on-farm knowledge, the basic understanding of how a farm works, is getting fewer and far between. What we're doing is we see a lot of folks coming into ag retail sector or into our universities that are from urban areas or city that have never been on a farm or did not grow up on a farm, I should say, maybe involved in FFA or 4-H through a local county or school, but have got the desire and education to help our producers. So doing more, but a lot of this has to do with technology, and whether it be interpreting yield test data, diagnosing problems, looking at soil test information, but being a solution-based provider out there, but being unbiased. One of the things that I am proud of MFA is not being There's a lot of tools in the toolbox, but not being overly specific on products that don't work. I see a lot of mistakes from independents and or other retailers in our footprint that you can tell when they have a promotion going on that there's probably a reason for some activity on those things. But we start with the problem at hand. So if it's a rust problem or a bug problem or a weed problem, there's many ways to get there. So what is the best solution that we can get to help our producers in doing that? So agronomy first has always been our motto, and then, making sure that we do the right thing agronomically is the first thing that we start with.
Well, I mean, it strikes me that, MFA Connect sounds like a pretty cutting edge type approach for the industry. And I know MFA has been around over 100 years. Obviously, as we've talked about, it's a big cooperative. How do you go about implementing change? From your vantage point, you may see like, hey, the industry is changing, our customers are changing, we need to change. But actually translating that into making a change seems like a daunting task. So could you talk about that? And you could use MFA Connect as an example or something else, but just how does change work in a big established cooperative?
This may sound cliche. We are based in Missouri, so you got to show me first, I guess would be. I'm a transplant into Missouri, but it's something you hear quite a bit is we are the show me state, so you got to show me. So whether it be, adoption of technology with MFA Connect or launching a consolidated agronomy center where you're going to serve 5 facilities out of 1. And I think you got to show them how we're going to do that, and we have to communicate. So I think one of the things that we as a cooperative, or we as an ag retail sector, we've done a poor job of communication with our producers and our member owners. And I think that we can always tell them what we're doing. We can say, hey, we're gonna close this fertilizer plant, we're gonna build one. But we don't tell them how we're going to do it. So we may be doing that, but how are we going to meet your needs better? I would tell you, we've gone through that, and I think this is nothing new for any ag retailer that is here. These hubs, these larger agronomy centers or larger fertilizer plants or just larger agronomy centers in general, we can do more with less. So we can consolidate equipment. We can consolidate people. We can give that work-life balance back to our applicators. We had examples of locations that we didn't reduce staff, but they're not working on Saturdays and Sundays now. And finding that next age workforce that wants to work 80, 90-hour weeks, there's fewer and far between the people that want to do that. So how do we help them get more efficient? So is the bottleneck at the fertilizer plant? Is it at the tendering? Is it at the spreaders? And the data that we're getting off of our machines and or our platforms like MFA Connect, where's the bottleneck in the operations? And how do we utilize that data to make more informed decisions is something we're doing. So I would say that when I look at implementing change is you have to communicate the why, but then communicate the how. How are we going to do that? What's it going to look like? But that communication has got to come back up the channel as well. So as we meet with our producers, whether it be in advisory board meetings, our annual meetings, our district delegate meetings, is that we need the feedback from them as well. But the chances or the day of you coming in and then saying, hey, you're going to have all my seed in the store, I'm ready to plant today, that's going to be challenging. We're going to be able to meet some of your needs. Absolutely, we can. But a little pre-planning or pre-communication goes a long ways in reducing the overall impact of issues that are out there. So that partnership goes both ways. One thing we're trying to do is communicate both up and down the channel a little bit better and easier.
And even before the communication, it seems to me like you need somebody with some serious conviction. I mean, in my experience, any change is going to be met with some pretty strong resistance from people who seemingly would rather just, keep things the same at all costs. And I don't work in a big company, but I imagine in a larger organization, it's going to take someone willing to risk their own kind of career capital to have those types of strong convictions. Is that reading the room correctly there?
It's like, I have a drawer here with some of the letters I get on the dissatisfaction of why are we closing our facilities, or why did we do this, or why are we spending capital down the road at this store and not at my store. And those are tough decisions. And Absolutely. The conviction we have to have for the betterment of MFA is there. I have a great team. MFA has a great team. Our board members are on board. Our team is on go. We've had the opportunity to do some of these things, but that information and using the information you have for that long-term goal is huge. And I'm not sure how to much more to say that without getting into too specific details, but you do have to develop a plan and then start executing that plan, and that there's going to be bumps along the way, and those things continue to happen. And like I said earlier, we're not going to be everything to everybody, and everybody's not going to be happy with the decisions that are made. But having stores every 10 miles is not feasible in today's economics either. You can't have two stores 10 miles apart with two dock workers, two warehousemen, two bookkeepers, two managers, all the stuff that goes with operating a facility. The margins are too thin to maintain and continue to make improvements in both and make advancements in technology and the speed and what our producers are expecting us to do is the same as they are. It's a give and take.
And I understand MFA Connect is powered by AgVend. Was that a difficult decision to kind of rely on a third party for that versus trying to build it yourself? It seems like you're large enough that theoretically you could build sort of a portal yourself. How did that conversation go?
I don't know if you've priced what it takes to have somebody build something here recently, but one of the things maybe that ag retailers or cooperatives is everybody thinks we're different, and MFA is different than the other folks that are similar in size or scope that we are. What I've learned is maybe there's a better way to do things. So was the decision tough? Absolutely not. We've seen the impact to the business for our customers, but also our internal business things, faster payment of bills, reduced interest costs to the organization, less confusion around statements and invoices. Those are all things that it's hard to put a number on the impact that it had to the organization. But what I would say is that by having a team like AgVend, we're able to share that cost. I don't have to have a developer, maintenance and upkeep. It's able to maintain with the platform what it's built on. We're able to keep those APIs and everything plugged in together the right way. But it's really allowed us to focus on what we're going to be the best at. We're going to be best at serving our producers, making sure they have products when they need it and when they want it, and make sure we're competitively priced. I'm probably not going to be the best at developing a IT platform or a program that is going to be a customer portal. That's probably not what we're going to be the best at. So how do we focus on what we're going to be good at and then plug into people that are the best at it? And I think that's where Alexander and the team at AgVend have really come in and helped us get better with that platform. I was at a conference here, I think it was an Ag Retail Association conference here a while back, and one of the guys, I can't remember who it was specifically, but said, AI is not going to take your job, but somebody using AI will. And how do we get information into platforms or into databases or into a warehouse that will allow our producers to make better informed decisions, to allow our agronomists to make better and more informed decisions, but also MFA as a cooperative make better, more informed decisions to meet the needs of our producers. So I think that is one of the goals we've had from early on. And then when they launched Goose, to allow us to have that platform to analyze the data, to make informed decisions versus spreadsheets or versus, hey, this is the way we've always done it. Can we get better at utilizing the data or using AI to drive better decisions?
Well, we talked about, the adoption of MFA Connect and how you're utilizing some of it for your promotional programs and marketing, that sort of thing. How would you describe where you're at in terms of like on the road to full utilization of the MFA Connect concept? How close are you to that?
It's continuing to grow. We're continuing to see improvements that are there. Our MFA Connect, we've been at it for a year now, and the adoption, like I said earlier, has been greater than what our goal. It's not as good as I want it to be. I think there's a lot of advantages to our producers when they get into a online platform like that they may not even realize the benefit that it'll have to their operation. So Still continue to look to add features. One of the things that, grain contracts and grain opportunities that are there for MFA. The MFA Rewards is launching in there as well. That's a new opportunity for us within that platform. And I think as producers continue to see that, as we make improvements in the data quality and the information going into it, and then the information you're getting out of it is crucial as well. So making sure you have good, clean data in your systems has been a interesting part, I guess, to the adoption of it probably as well.
And as you think about kind of those constantly rising expectations and the need to do more with less and the challenges with the farm economy, what types of things are keeping you up at night? What types of things are you most concerned about how they're going to play out as we, get further into this 2025 growing season and beyond?
Well, that's a great question. I think that a lot of folks would say, hey, what's the impacts of tariffs? What's the farm gate profitability? What does the aging producer look like at the farm gate? Is that start transitioning that farm to the next generations? What's the tax implications? As you look at absentee landowners, are they going to start selling some of their land? And as these operations are going to have a decision to make, are they going to purchase that land, or is it going to go on the auction block and the next person is going to continue to get bigger? So as you look at these operations that will continue to increase in size, and or the additional capital that the producers are going to have to put into the operations, that opportunity for growth for retailers in general is going to be compressed. And I think that is something we're continuing to look at, is how do we get more efficient and how do we do more with less, not only from a equipment or facility standpoint, but our people turnover and churn and just we have open positions at almost all of our facilities, and it's a continuing to be a struggle to find qualified help. People that want to work the hours, that can, get a Class A CDL and, be a hazmat driver for us, that can do those things. It's getting tougher to do that. And as we compete with the larger suburban areas, you think about like the St. Louis, Kansas City, the different areas around us, as we compete for those jobs, it's added cost to the organization. So how do we do better job with the assets we have, both physical and human assets as well, to make sure we manage those assets, but also manage that work-life balance to keep our employees happy as well.
And then, also kind of forward-looking, what about technology? What technology out there do you think is going to continue to impact your business and the farmers you serve?
The technology, there's two different types of technology. You have the technology we have in our sprayers, geo fencing capabilities, and or GIS technology, GPS technology. We have all of our sprayers, tenders are all lit up. We're able to see how many acres, where they're at, proximity to our facilities, and continue to do that. So that type of ability to see how we're utilizing those assets. A lot of times over the last few years, or a few times over the past few years, we've been able to go to one sprayer versus two sprayers. And how do we get more acres? And it's machine metrics. If we would swarm in this area and then move over here and do this over here, we could not have sprayers passing each other on the road. We currently have that happening now, where we're going down the road and we're crossing each other. It's like, why are we doing that? So utilizing technology to do that. But then also the technology for our agronomic traits. That gives me a little bit of concern how fast we're burning through the enlist trait. I believe, we had the Liberty trait, we had the Roundup Ready trait, we had the XtendFlex trait, and we have the enlist trait. And the enlist or 2,4-D resistance in water hemp. It gives me a lot of concern. HPPD resistance in water hemp. There's not a lot of options left for our producers. And as we look at the farm gate economics, one thing that happens with compressed farm gate economics is you look to reduce the amount of, you see that movement from a top tier herbicide program or fungicide program into that mid tier to a bottom tier. I look at innovation and technology. There's a few companies out there that remain invested in research and development. And supporting those companies should be one of the top priorities for the industry as a whole, because they're the ones bringing the new solutions. So when I think about who's going to bring the next trait, who's going to bring the next mode of action, the next herbicide, the next thing that's going to be there for our member owners, is probably not the folks that are importing tech from wherever and bringing it here, formulating it in a warehouse and selling it in a tin shed or out the back of a truck. We have to manage that a little bit, in my opinion, when I think about R&D and what value, and it can't be exorbitantly high, but there has to be some value for that new technology coming down the pipeline for our producers. Is if I look at just the advancements in technology for our producers, it's going to get bleak pretty fast.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, thinking about the R&D investments and how important it is to support those companies that are making those investments, especially considering it seems like, federal funding for university research is also not in a great place right now in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I think of the impact of just to start footprint on without the investment of Dow or Corteva in the range of pasture market. I think of the impacts that a Grazon P plus D, Grazon Next. I think of Durcor, Proclova. Those are all things that have come to benefit our cow-calf operators that wouldn't be there without the R&D of that company. And you think about tar spot and corn. Are there options out there maybe from ago that would provide opportunities for control of tar spot and corn? Yes. But I think that the new options we have are better, they're more targeted, and they're able to provide better control of that tar spot. So that innovation and technology, or that research and development, is crucial to our producer and their checkbook, whether they like it or not. That's the facts. Is there's 5 or 6 companies that are continue to spend significant money for the development of new AIs or new modes of action or new traits that may be in our corn or soybeans.
All right, well, right there is where we are going to wrap up today's episode. That last point about supporting the companies investing so much into research and development in our industry was one, I'll be honest, I did not expect going into the interview, but I'm so glad we got there. It's an important point to be thinking about. The dollars of research and development go in there, and as we have less venture capital going into this industry, and as we have public funding budgets being cut, I think we should really be asking where the research and development for the innovations of the future are supposed to come from, and try to be supportive to that end wherever possible. Jason also mentioned they do work with companies of all sizes through their internal agronomy team and agronomy platform, which tests a wide range of new products, from seed treatments to foliars to range and pasture products. So even if you're not a big established company, if you're interested in working with retailers, I get the sense that there are probably opportunities there as well. Thank you again to Jason for being on today's show, for that interview. And thank you very much again to AgVend for partnering with me to produce this episode. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, they were a part of the last Tech-Enabled Advisor series as well, so I was really excited that they were willing to work with me again on this one. I'm sure a lot has changed, but if you want to go back and check out that first episode, you can do so on episode 269, which I will link in the show notes as well. Last but never least, thank you for your time and your attention. I never take it lightly. I'll be back next week with another story of ag innovation.